Okay, hello and welcome to episode 4 of Tintincast, which is...
To be precise, episode 4.
Thompson Twins reference, good place to start. Cigars of the Pharaoh, which is the 4th Tintin book, and I think it's the first one that isn't a Tintin in country. We've had Tintin in the land of the Soviets, we've had Tintin in the Congo, we've had Tintin in America. This is the first one. It's just, okay, Tintin's established. Now we know who Tintin is. Now we want to see, Tintin in the Temple of Doom. It's a fantastic mystery adventure, Cigars of the Pharaoh.
I think it was originally, when it was serialized, it was called Tintin Reporter in the Orient or something like that. It was when it went to book format that I think it became Cigars of the Pharaohs. But yeah, you're absolutely right that they can make up more fanciful names now that Tintin's established as this great character.
Yeah, that's it. And you also, I think was this the last one that was black and white turned into color, and it didn't go just straight to color as the rest did? Is that right?
Oh, I think you could be right. It was yes, I think it did turn to color. It was colorized in 1955.
Yeah. So again, it's from the 30s, so it's pre Second World War.
Oh, well, do you want me to tell you a bit about the history?
Marcus, why don't you tell us a bit about the history of this book?
I shall. So this book was serialized in Le Petit Vingtième between December 1932 and February 1934. Obviously, Tintin's just got back from America. There's been the 3rd homecoming event that's been organized by Hergé and his boss, Wallet. And that's the biggest homecoming yet from America. Hergé's just got married to Jermaine Keekins, and he's 25 years old. He has a new apartment. He's working more from home, which aren't we all these days? So the abbot, his boss, Valet, is still a big influence on both of them. He's been both a boss and a mentor to both Hergé and his wife. But in 1933, the 20e siècle newspaper, which they all work for, gets embroiled in a controversy, and the newspaper seems to overstep the mark in criticizing a national construction project relating to the new Albert Canal. And this actually results in Wallet resigning from the newspaper. So Hergé loses his boss, he loses his mentor, and he loses his main supporter at the newspaper. So this is kind of a bit of a blow for Hergé.
Yeah.
The international context is obviously the Nazi Party is on the rise in Germany. And by the end of 1932, when the serialization starts, the Nazi Party was the largest party in the German Reichstag by then. Hitler was appointed chancellor in early 1933.
Yeah.
Also, anti-Semitic rhetoric is on the rise, and the 20e siècle newspaper is sort of trying to make sense of all of this news coming out of Germany. On the one hand, they seem to be criticizing Hitler, and on the other hand, there's also anti-Semitic feeling that is being expressed within the newspaper. So this is the backdrop to which Cigars and the Pharaohs is being written. And in other ways, it's very much capturing the zeitgeist, because Agatha Christie and Raymond Chandler's mystery stories are all in vogue at the time. And it's kind of interesting that Hergé has that more of a mystery feel to this one.
Yeah, and Ellery, was it Ellery Queen?
Yes.
I love that aspect of it. I mean, right from the cover, you go, well, what's going on? What are the Cigars of the Pharaoh? That was what intrigued me about this one when I was a kid. What are the Cigars of the Pharaoh? And I love a mystery. What is this strange symbol that's everywhere? What is this strange? What are the cigars? Why are there people in sarcophagi?
Yes.
And that's what intrigued me. So when it starts, it's instantly this is going to be a mystery, and the others weren't a mystery. And maybe that's becomes a part of what makes Tintin so great. Is the first 3 books aren't mysteries; they are kind of Tintin on holiday, Tintin exploring, Tintin solving crimes and that kind of thing, and meeting thugs. Whereas this is the first one where there's a conspiracy, weird characters, and it's a bit of a whodunit. It's a bit of a Scooby-Doo, you know, who are these people we're meeting? There's some of them turn out to be bad, some of them turn out to be okay, some of them turn out to be mad. But yeah, it's got a great cast of supporting characters, which we can get into, and obviously a particular couple of characters.
Oh, yes. Before we talk about them, I found it very interesting that apparently Hergé embarked on writing this quite complicated mystery without planning the structure for it at all, not knowing what would happen, how it would end up, you know, who the villains would be.
But yeah, it starts again, and it starts in similar. You know, Tintin's on a voyage, and he immediately meets a very eccentric gentleman, and that's what kicks the whole thing off. Because Snowy is bored. Snowy is like, you know, Tintin's like, we've visited all these amazing places, but he says we've done this amazing journey. Piraeus, Naples, Marseille, Straits of Gibraltar. How's that for a marvelous cruise? And Snowy's like, yeah, dull as ditch water. For a dog, it would be, wouldn't it? And then as soon as someone shouts, "Stop! Help!" Snowy's like, "Ah, here we go." So Snowy is a classic terrier. He's like, "What's next?"
And this is Dr. Sophocles Sarcophagus, of course.
Great name. Yeah, he's obviously an intelligent guy who enjoys tomb raiding. From that name. Was that his name in the original Belgian? Sophocles Sarcophagus.
I don't know.
Because I know they changed some of the names. Obviously, you know, I know Haddock and Tintin, obviously, and Snowy all had different names. But I just wanted some of the really eccentric names that are sort of very on the nose. You know, Sophocles Sarcophagus.
Well, we should do an episode where we pay homage to the translators, because obviously so much of Tintin and Captain Haddock and is about the language.
Yeah, and obviously other characters that you know translate. We think of them as having a certain way of speaking, but that's not how Hergé necessarily wrote them, because things don't translate 100% from Belgian to English. They will have had to have been a bit creative with the English.
Yes, and Sarcophagus feels like some sort of prototype for Professor Calculus, who'd come along later in the series.
He does, and Calculus is Calculus always felt like he'd been just hit on the head. Either that, or he just had too many ideas in his head, so that what came out was just obviously, you know, confused gobbledygook. We don't see this guy again, do we? Sarcophagus.
No, I don't believe so.
He's just in this one, but he's on an adventure. Something's happened to him, which we later find out something has been done to him. But you just think, oh, he's crazy. I get it. He's crazy. He's a crazy, eccentric, you know, millionaire or something. And then you gradually realize he's embroiled in something. And then you also meet Mr. Rastapopoulos, don't you? Roberto Rastapopoulos, the millionaire film tycoon in this episode.
Because we think he may have been seen briefly at the end of Tintin in America, but this is his first proper outing in a Tintin story. Yeah.
And speaking of anti-Semitism, apparently some people thought he was a Jewish caricature, but Hergé always said he's not meant to be Jewish at all. He's he sounds Greek to me.
Well, I think, yes, that's right. I mean, Hergé has said that he was supposed to be a shady Mediterranean Greek, and he called him a stateless person without faith or moral code.
So a film producer then. Ooh.
And we also have the introduction of two very important characters.
Yes, the old couple that he meets later on in the... I presume you mean on page 4 when we meet Dupont et Dupond.
Yes, they're French names. Now, are they twins? Can you put this to bed once and for all, Miles?
I don't think they are. I think they are related, but I think they're based on Hergé's uncle and either cousin or dad or something.
I think it's supposed to be his uncle Leon and his Hergé's father.
Yeah, so you know they could be distant. They could be cousins. Also, if they're called Thompson and Thompson, then makes you think that there's some kind of been a name change in the family, that they've been brought together, but they're not twins. No.
Yeah, because in all the languages, in fact, they have different surnames. I think in Spanish it's Hernandez and Fernandez, and in German it's Schultz and in Schulz.
Okay.
So yeah, they have different surnames in all languages.
I like that because I can imagine people. This never comes up in the comics. I don't think you can imagine someone going, "Are you two related?" and then going, "Don't be ridiculous. We're not related. To be precise, you know what I mean? There's no relation." It's like so other people's mistake. It's like we're nothing alike. You know, that's what I love about them, is they're together, but they're constantly at odds with each other.
So remind me which one is which, because there's a subtle.
Yeah, I believe Thompson has got a curly moustache, and Thompson has a straight moustache. I'm pretty sure that's the way to remember them. And I think later on in this book they say, "I'm Thompson, yes, Thompson," and yeah. So the one with the extra bit has the extra. That's how I remembered it, as the extra letter in his name, and the one with the smaller moustache has the smaller name.
Okay. They go on and they're going to. After this book, they appear in 17 of the next 19 books.
Wow, that's amazing. And I mean, when you think of Tintin, you immediately think Tintin and Snowy, Haddock, and the Thompson twins. All the other characters are supporting characters, but you do think of. They're not actually called the Thompson twins at any point. I'm referencing the '80s band that we all were in, which was named after the detectives, isn't it? The Thompson detectives. They're just always called Thompson and Thompson, aren't they? Oh, look, it's Thompson and Thompson. They don't say the Thompson twins or the Thompson anything, the brothers. They just say the Thompson twins. The Thompsons, but they're great. They're sort of a cross between the sort of twittish British and French detectives that you might have had in them. I mean, they're sort of a precursor for Clouseau, aren't they? And but they're quite sort of Jacques Tati, maybe.
Yeah, and I think in the British and American versions they were supposed to work for Scotland Yard, whereas in the European, the Belgian versions, they were Interpol.
I mean, it's great because they are bumbling idiots, but the one great thing they do in this book is they save Snowy from a certain death. So, you know, major points for that.
They're pretty fully formed in this book as well. They have the catchphrase, they have the crazy costumes, they have the slapstickery.
Yes, and I love their counter sentences. He won't get far if my name's Thompson. To be precise, if my name's Thompson, we won't get far. You know, Thompson is always following up what Thompson says with something that completely denigrates them and makes them seem like complete idiots. It's like he's misunderstood what Thompson has said and thinks he's repeating him and back it, but actually he's completely negating what Thompson just said. I think that's real genius in character. There's very good wordplay in there. Obviously in the original Belgian, I don't know how it works, but I'm sure it's as witty.
And there's another Thompson with a P who gets introduced in this book on page 10, Alan Thompson. And I hadn't realized that Alan, a slightly shady figure who's picking up merchandise in coffins, was actually a Thompson as well. Any relation of the detectives?
I wonder, maybe it's like Mycroft and Sherlock, you know. Maybe one of them went one way and one of them went another way, and Thompson doesn't really talk about Alan.
Despite them looking nothing like each other, maybe.
Nothing like each other. Thompson's probably like, I look more like my uncle's side of the family.
Apparently Alan was drawn in when he redrew the comic book later on. He's trying to introduce characters retrospectively.
Oh, really? Yeah, he's a good character because he's in it. Is he in it again in a few more books?
I think he's in The Crab with the Golden Claws and Red Sea Sharks, and yeah, he's in a few.
Yeah, they're Middle East ones, aren't they? So that you do see him again. Yeah, but yeah, I was for some reason I was incredibly disturbed by the bit where they wake up in the sea in coffins, but it was mostly because I can't imagine my dog Edgar waking up in a coffin in the middle of the ocean and going, "Hello, am I?" You know, and me going, "It's all right, boy, we're fine." Again, like the previous three books, you've got the classic ingredients: planes, trains, and automobiles. boats and all this.
Talking of boats, there's another character who's introduced in this book who would appear again, which is Oliveira de Figueira of Lisbon in
yeah,
Portugal, who's the salesman, and I kind of feel almost like a precursor to a Jolly and Wag character as well.
yes, he's a lot like Jolly and Wag, isn't he? He's a complete con man, smooth talking fraudster, and I love the fact that Tintin says, "I'm really glad I didn't get sucked into, all his talk because," and Tintin realizes he's bought like half a dozen useless items already because he's such a smooth talker.
It's funny that there's some stories around when these characters are introduced, like the Portuguese Figueira. He gets the books seem to then go on to become translated into Portuguese. But it seems almost as though Hergé is throwing in these characters from different countries almost to win kind of publishing rights in different nations.
I wonder, yeah. And you've got the Arabian characters who are, again, that they are based on stereotypes because the way they say things, you infidel, and all of that, and also what's the name of the chap? Petrash Pasha, and he has a very shady sort of way of speaking, which is a little bit, but it's a cartoon, it's for kids. You need to understand that. But and his servant is a sort of straight out of Tintin in the Congo. These are stereotypes, less sort of prevalent than in Tintin in the Congo, which has been accused of being racist. This is sort of, and he does, once he learns who Tintin is, he's becomes his friend, and so they're not just thuggish, warlike characters that he meets. He does make allies, which is a good thing about Tintin. I like the fact that he has allies around the world as well, not just people trying to kill him. Because if everyone was trying to kill him, he has garnered some respect already in the few years he's been reporting.
The big thing I found about this book is it feels slightly disjointed, just because it feels as though Hergé is almost feeling his way as he goes. And just reading around this, there's this quote from Hergé that says, "I wanted to try my hand at mystery, the detective novel and suspense, and I got myself so entangled in my enigmas that I almost couldn't get out again." And actually, he seems to have been doing is asking the readers of the children's supplement to write in each week to see if anybody could solve the mystery or kind of work out who the evil enemy was, because it just didn't seem as though Hergé had a clue.
Please help me write this, kids.
Yeah. And so the plot seems to take some bizarre twists. Suddenly they're in the Arabian Peninsula, and then suddenly he's kind of picked up by a plane and dropped in India, and then the story seems to take, everyone seems to be there, all of it, for some reason, and the story just kind of starts again from in India.
You're right, and the Thompsons are kind of following him, but you're like, oh, they've run into him again. And they kind of sum up what he's been doing: drug smuggling, gun running, inciting to rebellion. It's like, no, I haven't been doing that, no. But one of my favorite bits is it's just a really nice joke. I like Tintin running across the film crew shooting in the desert. That's great. Runs into Rastapopoulos again, and but I love the bit in the boat where Tintin hides in the barrel of water, and the Thompsons are looking for him, and then finally Tintin just bursts out, spits water all over them, and goes, "Sorry, I just couldn't stay underwater any longer," and runs away. It's so great, and they're just like, "What?" Because that's probably what it would be like. You'd be like, "Sorry, I can't hold my breath any longer." I just thought that was a really funny moment. There's a lot of messing about on boats for the first half of the book, isn't there?
Yeah, and then it seems to take a sort of 180-degree turn when they get to India, and suddenly they get taken to this colonial house, and suddenly they're in this sort of Agatha Christie household manor mystery.
Yeah, that's true, with the old couple, and yeah, it does have a lot of things in it. I mean, I wonder sometimes, it's like 60 odd pages. I wonder sometimes if Hergé thought, I've got to pad this out a bit, because obviously it takes a good 40 pages to get to this. What the hell are the cigars of the Pharaoh? He meets the fake here, and he goes, escapes and goes to India and stuff. But yeah, it is a long time before. I mean, actually, I was quite surprised that it's page 53, 54 when he discovers the secret society.
Yeah.
I thought that was in the middle of the book, but it's about 5, 6 pages from the end.
No, it seems like, oh, well, yeah, it's getting on a bit now. Let's try and wrap this up.
Yeah, but in the meantime, you get some brilliant moments. You get him being chased by Ramses II in sarcophagus in the jungle again. He makes friends with an elephant, which is nice after Tintin in the Congo. He has a plane crash. He has all this stuff. Also, notably, he has the first R elephant.
Well, I was going to say we're talking about elephants, and I thought I should address the elephant in the room, not this elephant, but it's something we're going to have to address sooner or later. It's the sheer lack of female characters in Hergé's books, and
Yes.
interestingly about this book is that there is a female protagonist who Tintin runs into in this colonial house in India, Mrs. Snowball, who turns out to be one of the baddies at the end. But it's rare to see rare to see women in Hergé's books, and much rarer to see them being the baddie.
That's true. The snowballs they run into. Yeah, and other female characters I can think of are, obviously Bianca Castafiore. But yeah, there aren't very many. But it is, of the time, it's a very boys' own adventure, and it was definitely along the lines of those. He doesn't have a girlfriend. Just shove the girlfriend out the picture and just have Tintin running around, because women get in the way, kind of thing. Which is what they tend to do, and even in 80s movies, it's like, ditch the girl so that the male guy can go and have a big adventure without the women interfering in this silly nonsense. So yes, it was a bit of its time, wasn't it?
I think it's a bit slightly dubious in this book that the first and the only other, I think, appearance of a woman in this book is the lady being whipped by the Arabs in the. It turns out that it is actually a scene from a movie, but even so,
she's a gangster's mole sort of character, isn't she? A woman. And also, there are 2 instances of this in the book, and I think it's definitely worth mentioning. I think this is the first one which we have a half-page panel. Previously, Tintin in America had the first quarter-page panel, which is Tintin navigating but this has got 2 in it. It's got a later on, it's got a quarter page in there. It's got 2 half-page ones, and I think there's one near the end, which has got some of the elephant detail in it. That's beautiful. Yeah.
The other scene that really sticks out for me is obviously the hallucinogenic scene where Tintin is gassed in one of the first scenes, and there's just an incredible kind of 60s, although we're in the 1930s, there's sort of a 60s hallucinogenic kind of movie sequence.
Yeah, that was scary actually, because obviously he sees, as if it wasn't scary enough to see all these sarcophagi. And there's 3 at the end, one for Tintin, and it says Tintin report a snowy dog and sarcophagus, and they're gonna kill them and put them in these sarcophagus, and that's so Tintin's already seen that, and he's like, oh no. And then he gets gassed, and in his mind he envisions him and Snowy in these sarcophagi dead, and he just goes, oh no, not that. That's his part. That's as he's going under, that's his final thought, which is really scary. So at that point he thinks he's going to wake up in a sarcophagus.
Yeah, and it's really, the whole book is really menacing. I think this book probably terrified me more than any of the others as a child, because there's also the writer being poisoned by the rajaja juice, the blowpipe, and it explains that this is the poison that makes you go mad. And yeah, that terrified me as well. And also the fakir character that you mentioned is a really scary guy.
Oh yeah, the eyes. Yeah, he's terrifying. Yeah.
And then we've got this later in the book where he finds the sect and he traces them down to their lair. There are these kind of people in their purple, like Ku Klux Klan suits or something, and
Yeah.
really scary.
That reminded me of the Stonecutters from The Simpsons.
You know what it reminded me of?
Yeah.
Eyes Wide Shut.
Oh yes. Yes. What is the password for the house?
It's exactly straight from Eyes Wide Shut. It was, yes, Stanley Kubrick is a Tintin fan.
Yes, he must be. And also, I think it's a bit of a parody of what did I read? It was sort of conservative attitudes to the Freemasons, conspiracists theories. That's what people think the Freemasons do, is that they all have these strange meetings, and they might do, we don't know. These strange meetings where they plot people's downfall, you know. But yeah, that's the Agatha Christie Scooby-Doo ending, where he unmasks them all. And I like the fact that he gets in there by stealing a robe. That's a classic sort of 60s, 70s movie. Also Indiana Jones, what you do, you'd steal the Nazi uniform so that you could get in with the troops and pretend to be a Nazi and infiltrate the baddie's lair. And I like the fact that Tintin does that. They realize there's a traitor there, and then he gets called first and then spends the rest of the scene hitting everyone else on the head.
It's a very clever scene, that.
Yeah, it is. And then they're all been unmasked, and at that point in come the Thompsons, and the whole thing gets wrapped up. And then you have this mystery dude at the end.
Mystery man
who shoots at Tintin and then falls off a cliff. And do we see him again, Marcus?
Well, so this is the next book. The Blue Lotus is really a bit of a continuation of this. Did Hergé plan that all along?
I wonder. And the Blue Lotus to me always felt like an earlier style. I don't think he updated it as much as it felt like he did Blue Lotus. I think because he probably did Blue Lotus straight away in color. Because it feels like old Tintin. It doesn't feel updated. It feels of the time. I think that's what happened. We'll get into that next week. But Blue Lotus, I remember it being very dense and very beautifully colored, and just, you know, again, it's got a lovely feel to it, but it's quite different to this. But it is a continuation, yeah.
Well, Hergé did say, and we can explore this more next time, but he did say that Tintin was a game to me until the Blue Lotus.
Right, that's interesting. So until the Blue Lotus, yeah. And that's what's brilliant about reading these books in sequence, is that you can see the characters developing. You can see the style developing. Cigars of the Pharaoh is a different book to Tintin in America. But Cigars of the Pharaoh, Tintin is his own thing now. And I think by that point, Tintin was hugely popular.
Well, shall we award it a score on the 7 crystal balls scale?
I'm going to give this one 5 balls again this week. Same as Tintin in America, because I feel like it's very, very strong. It's very, very strong. It's different to Tintin in America. It's got different elements. It's got the Thompsons in it, but it's not quite reached the heights yet of some of the best ones. But it is one of my favorites, Cigars of the Pharaoh.
I've been pondering this, what to give it, and I wouldn't say it's keeping me up at night, but it was, should I give it 4 or should I give it 5? I mean, it's a very grown-up book. There's arms smuggling and drugs. Tintin kind of feels more of a maturer character here. He's not just a reporter. He's more of a detective almost here.
Yeah.
And then there's this like menacing, unknown protagonist, and there's more drama, and there's more of a there kind of is an overarching story. But on the other hand, Hergé hasn't really planned it. It feels quite meandering. He's devising the plot on a week by week basis, and but I will give it a 5 because it is just so immersive, and it just creates such an atmosphere that I remember being kind of quite magical and frankly quite terrifying when I was younger.
Yeah, I think if we were going to give it 4, we'd then have to consider that the Thompsons are in it and give it 5, just the fact that it's their first book.
That's true.
And it's just this whole new element. It's like the Thompsons are going to be with us to the moon and back, literally. So I think it deserves a 5, yes.
Excelente. So just to give a bit of context as we're wrapping up this week, Cigars of the Pharaohs gets fantastic reviews, and this means that at the end of the year, at the end of actually December 1933, the publisher Casterman approaches Hergé, and they have a proposal to launch the entire Tintin book series in France, which is obviously a huge new market for him. He's really keen, but he's still under contract with Le 20e siècle for 3 more books. He's getting a bit disillusioned with the newspaper he's at. He feels it's getting a bit restrictive for him, but he approaches his boss and his new boss, and with the intention of handing in his notice and going elsewhere. But his new boss persuades him to stay at the newspaper and magazine, and strikes a new deal. his pay rises from 2,000 francs to 3,000 francs a month. And actually, his responsibilities get narrowed down as well, just to focus in on the cartoons on Tintin. So Hergé's going to stick around there a little longer.
Well, you would, wouldn't you? Would you like to keep doing the thing you love doing for more money, but do less of the stuff you don't want to do? Yeah, all right. How could he say no? But yeah, no, it's interesting. Obviously, now Hitler has come to power. I remember from my A-level history lessons, 1933, von Papen, Chancellor von Papen goes, Hitler's in, and it's from that point onward that the Nazis rise and rise and rise and rise for the next 6 years, to the point where World War II happens. So the next few books are taking place in the era of the rise of the Nazis, which is not entirely irrelevant, is it? Which we can come to. But yeah,
it's going to be a fascinating few books, and one puzzle can I throw into the mix for next time?
Yeah.
I have always been fascinated at why each of the Tintin books has a different coloured band down the left-hand side in the binding. And I've been wondering if there is any particular reason for that, or if anyone can come up with any plausible reason why they might be coloured the way that they are.
I wonder. I had to have a look back at the books then. Yes, I wonder. I won't posit any ideas at this stage, but I'll have a think about it for next time. Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's reconvene same time, same place for the Blue Lotus.
Fantastic. Can't wait.
See you next week.
Thanks for watching.